Hello students. Now let's begin with the explanation of the poem Preludes. Preludes is a chain of 4 short poems composed by T.S. Eliot, which was published in his first collection, Prufrock and Other Observations in 1917. Now let's begin with the first section of the poem. I'll just read out the section and then I'll tell you the meanings of the difficult words and terms here, and then we'll move on with the explanation of this section. So I'll read out the first section. The winter evening settles down with smell of steaks in passageways. 6 o'clock. The burnt out ends of smoky days, and now a gusty shower wraps the grimy scraps of withered leaves about your feet, and newspapers from vacant lots. The showers beat on broken blinds and chimney pots, and at the corner of the street, a lonely cab horse steams and stamps, and then the lighting of the lamps. Now, in the second line, with smell of steaks. Steaks refers to the sliced meat or fish of high quality. Then the fourth line, burnt out ends. Burnt out means exhausted. And now a gusty shower. In the fifth line, gusty shower. Gusty means windy. Next line, the grimy scraps. Grimy means dirty. Scraps means waste, something that is no more useful. Vacant lots of withered leaves about your feet, and newspapers from vacant lots. Vacant lots here refers to a small area that is not occupied or inhabited. Okay, so now let's begin with the explanation of this part. This first section in Preludes, the setting is a winter evening, and it is a winter evening scene in fact, and the time is 6 o'clock in the evening. The smell of steak cooking is in passageways tells us it is dinner time. A brilliant image expresses the evening as the stub end of the smoky days. A wind is bringing a hint of rain and blows withered leaves from one place to the other. Newspapers are blown away across the street. The detail seems to be taken from an American city. A cab horse sweats and stamps its feet at the corner of the street. The gas lights are lit. Okay. The prelude 1 concludes with the scene of night and the lightning of the street lamps. Eliot paints the scene vividly with a few concrete physical details, a sketch which is more effective than a complete painting. The mood in this first section is of disenchantment, deadness, and dehumanization. Words like burnt out, grimy, withered, broken, lonely all convey the feelings of sordidness, defeat, and death. In the first lines of this first section of Preludes, the speaker begins by setting the scene. He has given the winter setting, the winter evening setting here. And it is a winter evening and the day is coming to a close. The speaker describes it as though it is a person. He personifies it, allowing a reader to better understand the place. The next feature he wants, in the next lines, he wants the reader to know about the city. The city, the next feature of the city, that it is full of these smells of steak. It smells like the steak. This smell is in the passageways, wafting from restaurants and homes. The scene is less calm than it originally seemed in the first lines, as the speaker depicts the day as burnt out. Burnt out means it is completely exhausted and it is finally settling down. There is a rainstorm happening as well. It moves the grimy scraps, the dirty waste left behind by the long day, and which is wrapping all around the feet of the passers-by or the onlookers. At this point, it becomes clear that Eliot is going to use words in second person. This makes perfect sense for this piece as it forces the reader into the narrative alongside the speaker. In the next line, there is the first reference to newspapers. First reference I am specifically mentioning here. Why? Because we will see the repetition of this reference in the following sections too. The newspapers are moving from their previous resting place in the vacant lots and they are looking for some other place now as they are moving with the force of the gusty winds and the rainstorm. It is actually raining and it is beating down onto the apartments and rattling the broken blinds and chimney pots. The speaker makes clear that the city is not in good shape. It seems to be falling apart. In the last lines, the speaker calls the reader's attention when he says, he draws the attention of the reader to the corners of the street as he says that a lonely cab horse steams and stamps. And then the lightning of the lamps. The city scene is becoming increasingly dramatic. There is a horse in the distance, stamping its feet on the ground and blowing hot air out of its nose. The last line is separate from the rest of the stanza. He describes the lightning of the lamps. This is a reference to the onset of night and how everyone lights the lamps inside their homes. The line emphasizes the fact that the people in the city have long since escaped from its streets. They are now safely in their, they are safe inside their houses. So that's all for the first section. Now let's begin with the second section of the poem. It is a short section comprising of 10 lines. I'll first read out the section. The morning comes to consciousness of faint, stale smells of beer from the sawdust trampled street with all its muddy feet that press to early coffee stands. With the other masquerades that time resumes, one thinks of all the hands that are raising dingy shades in 1,000 furnished rooms. First of all, let us deal with the meanings. Not too many difficult terms in this particular section. Now the third line of this section, from the sawdust trampled street, sawdust, particles of wood, trampled, stamped or treaded by the passerbys. Masquerades, with the other masquerades. Masquerades means disguises. Then in the concluding lines, one thinks of all the hands that are raising dingy shades. Dingy means dark, dull, gloomy. Shades here maybe the window panes. Okay. So he is referring here to the human hands lifting the shades to let the morning light in. Okay. Now, in the second section of Prelude, that is the second Prelude 2, the scene changes to morning. So he skips from evening and night now to morning. And Eliot changes the form of his verse to something nearer to regular stanzic pattern to convey a slightly more hopeful note. But the sordidness is continued into the morning scene Though people are rising from the bed and marching to the workplace, stale smells of beer surround the workers as they stamp down the sawdust trampled street with their muddy feet. The atmosphere is one of hangover after a night of wickedness. Many people are getting ready to act the daily pretense of life, the monotonous life of work, school, old faces, and similar things. Life goes on, but it is a meaningless ritual or routine. Here, the speaker skips the rest of the night and morning has dawned once more. This is another example of Eliot's use of personification. The city comes back to consciousness, just like a human being waking up. The first smell the speaker takes note of this time is that of stale beer. This is probably a leftover from whatever happened at night, in between the two stanzas. There are also footprints in the mud. These lead up to early coffee stands. The importance of this line connects to the next, in which the speaker emphasizes the unchanging pattern of life. The inhabitants of the city need a coffee to resume their masquerades with time. The speaker wants to make sure that the reader thinks about the hands that are lifting the dark shades of the rooms, of the 1,000 furnished rooms, to let the morning light in. The morning is not necessarily a fresh start of life, a fresh beginning to a new day. These people are grudgingly entering back into the same pattern of tasks. A relevance of the reference to masquerade balls comes from the fact that time never seems to progress. There are no changes to the landscape of movement. So, people here are leading a monotonous life wherein they follow a set routine. Whether it is evening, night, or morning, they follow a very lethargic, a very melancholic, a very monotonous routine of life. And this is actually a picture of modern city life. So, with this, we complete the first two sections of Preludes. In the next video, I'll deal with the concluding two sections of the poem, the third and the fourth section of Preludes. Thank you.